Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to Fluent and Fearless. I'm Katherine Arthur from Pronounced Speech and Accent Specialist, your friendly speech language pathologist, accent specialist, and radio broadcaster. Today I want to talk to you about something that can seem small on the outside, but it feels huge on the inside. It's that moment when you say something and the other person just doesn't understand you. And it's not because your idea was bad, it's not because you didn't know what you wanted to say, and it's not because you weren't prepared. It's because somehow, between your mouth and their ears, the message got lost. So, have you ever had one of those moments when someone doesn't understand you and it affects you a lot more than it seems like it should? Maybe the other person says, "Sorry, what did you say?" So you repeat yourself, and they still just don't get it. And suddenly, it's not just a simple conversation anymore. Now you feel embarrassed or frustrated or deflated. And maybe part of you is wondering, why is this bothering me so much? If you've ever felt this way, this episode of Fluent and Fearless is just for you. And especially if you speak English as a second language, if you've ever felt like there's a gap between who you really are and how you come across when you speak, then I think this topic might hit close to home, especially for you. Because today I want to talk about something deeper than pronunciation or language. I want to talk about why all of us want to be understood so badly, and why that feeling is not just about language. It's about being human. I'm Katherine Arthur of Pronounced Speech and Accent Specialist. Join me today on this episode of Fluent and Fearless as we explore a topic that many of us know all too well. And stay with me because I'm going to tell you about a free gift that may just help you develop the speaking confidence you've been looking for. Again, that's a free gift, and details will be coming up shortly. But first, let's start with something that many of us, especially ESL speakers, know all too well. You say something, and you know exactly what you mean. You've thought a lot about it, and you've chosen your words carefully. And maybe you've even rehearsed it in your mind before you began speaking. And then the other person looks confused. They may ask you to repeat yourself, or worse, they respond to something completely different from what you meant. And in that moment, the frustration is often much bigger than the actual misunderstanding. Because what you feel is not just they didn't understand your words. What you feel is they just didn't get me. And that's what hurts. For many ESL speakers, being misunderstood can feel exhausting because it happens on top of so much effort. You're not just speaking. You're translating, organizing, you're monitoring your grammar, choosing vocabulary, adjusting pronunciation, reading the other person's reaction, and then trying to stay calm all at the same time. So when someone doesn't understand you, it can feel like all of your effort somehow just disappeared into thin air. Let me give you an example. Imagine you're at the doctor's office, or at your child's school, or on a work call with new clients. Now, this is not just casual small talk. This is important, and it matters to you. You need to explain something clearly. So you rehearse the sentence in your head, you know the vocabulary, and you say it carefully. And then the other person responds in a way that makes it obvious that they didn't understand what you meant. Maybe they look confused, or they answer the wrong question. Maybe they smile politely, but you can tell that they misunderstood. And at that point, what you feel is more than just, irritation. It's panic or embarrassment and self-consciousness. And it's a sinking feeling that, oh no, now I have to do this all over again. And for many ESL speakers, as you can see, that feeling is very complicated because what you're doing is more than just speaking. You're speaking while translating. You're speaking while monitoring grammar. You're speaking while choosing vocabulary. You're speaking while trying to pronounce things clearly. You're speaking while reading the other person's face for clues. And you're speaking while trying not to look flustered. And that's a lot. So when someone doesn't understand you, it can feel like all of your hard work has just vanished. It's like you built a bridge all the way across a river, and somehow the last few feet just didn't connect. And I think that's where people can be very hard on themselves. They think, well, maybe I shouldn't care so much, or I'm just being too sensitive, or it was just a misunderstanding. And then you begin to doubt yourself. You're thinking thoughts like, why is this so hard? Or maybe I'm not a good communicator, or maybe I'll never sound clear enough, or maybe people think I'm less capable than what I really am. So circumstances like this are more than just a misunderstanding. It kind of hurts. Why is that? Well, I think what makes it hurt is that communication is one of the main ways we prove to each other that we exist as we really are. Now that might sound dramatic, but stay with me, because think about it. Every time you speak, you're doing something kind of miraculous. You're taking a thought that only exists inside of your mind and trying to place it inside someone else's mind. You're saying, here, this is what I mean. This is what I think. This is what I noticed. This is what I need, or this is what I am. When all of this works the way it should, it brings a sense of satisfaction, relief, and connection. When it doesn't work the way it should, when it fails, it can seem like a part of you is missing. And that's why people care so deeply about being understood. And yeah, this is especially intense for people speaking in a second language. But I also think this is universal, because everybody knows the feeling of saying, that's not what I meant. Because now the problem is no longer just communication. It has become identity. And when that happens, speaking can start to feel risky. You hesitate more, you overthink more, you say less, you avoid opportunities, and you begin to edit yourself before you even really get started. And it's not because you have nothing to say, but because you're trying to protect yourself from the discomfort of being misunderstood. And that's why accent modification work matters so much. Yes, speech clarity matters, pronunciation tools matter, and confidence building, that matters too. But emotional understanding, that matters as well. Because sometimes what people need most is not only a strategy for clear speech, sometimes they just also need someone to say, it makes sense if this hurts. It makes sense that you're tired of repeating yourself. It makes sense that you want your words to carry your real intelligence, your personality, your humor, and your warmth. That desire, that's not vanity. It's not perfectionism, and it's not weakness. It's simply being human. And actually, I'd go even further. I think one of the deepest human desires is to feel that what lives inside of us can be received accurately by someone else. Not perfectly, but accurately enough that our needs are met. And when that happens, we relax. We feel safer, we feel more confident, and we feel more like ourselves. So if you're listening to this and you've been carrying around the frustration of being misunderstood, I want to say this very clearly. You're not being dramatic for feeling hurt by it. You're not shallow for wanting to sound clear. And you're not asking for too much by wanting people to understand you the first time. You just want what everybody wants. You want to feel like you matter. What I want you to understand is that your frustration over communication misunderstandings makes sense. It makes sense because communication is never just about transferring information. Communication is about connection. It's about reaching another person. It's about taking something from inside of your mind, whether it's an idea, an opinion, a feeling, or a story, taking that and successfully placing it into someone else's understanding. And that's a vulnerable act. And when your message doesn't connect the way you want it to, it can feel surprisingly personal. And this feeling is universal. Now, this is the part that I think matters so much. The need to be understood is not just an ESL issue. It's a human issue. Everyone wants to be understood. Children want to be understood. Teenagers want to be understood. Spouses, they want to be understood. Employees want to be understood. Managers want to be understood. Friends, they want to be understood. Even people who speak their first language fluently feel hurt when others misread their tone, dismiss their intent, or completely miss the point of what they're trying to say. Think about how often people say things like, "Hey, that's not what I meant," or "You're misunderstanding me," or "Hey, that came out wrong," or "That's not what I was trying to say." These things happen to everybody because the pain of being misunderstood is tied to something universal. We all want evidence that what's inside of us can successfully reach the outside world. We want proof that our thoughts matter, that our intentions are visible, that our feelings can be received accurately, and that who we are is making it across. So yes, ESL speakers often feel this pain more frequently and more intensely because language adds another layer of challenge. But the desire underneath it, that part belongs to all of us. So let's go one step further. Why does being misunderstood create such a strong emotional reaction? Well, it's because for many people, misunderstanding doesn't just feel inconvenient. It feels like disconnection. And human beings, we're wired to care deeply about connection. We're social creatures. We rely on each other. We build identity through relationships. So when communication breaks down, even in a small everyday moment, it can feel like a small failure, especially if you've had repeated experiences of not being understood, and especially if you've ever felt judged, especially if people have interrupted you, finished your sentences, looked impatient, or assumed that your speech reflected your intelligence. For ESL speakers, this can become more than a communication issue. It can become an emotional pattern. You start anticipating misunderstanding before it happens. You over-explain. You apologize for your English, even when your English is actually very strong. As a result, you start to speak less, and you feel like you shrink a little bit as a human being. Over time, the real burden is not only the misunderstanding itself, it's the fear of misunderstanding. And that fear can start taking up way more space than the actual communication problem. So what do we do with all of this? Well, first, I think it helps to reframe the experience. If you feel upset when someone misunderstands your speech, that does not mean you're overly sensitive. It does not mean you're weak, and it certainly does not mean that you care too much. What it means is that communication matters to you. It means connection matters to you. It means that being accurately known matters to you. Honestly, that's a very human thing. Because think about it. Our goal is not to become a robot who never cares about anything. The goal is not to say, well, I shouldn't be bothered by this. The goal is to understand why it hurts and then respond with more self-compassion and more strategy instead of self-criticism. Because self-criticism says, if I were better, this wouldn't happen. But a more realistic perspective says, communication is important. Communication is also complicated. Misunderstandings happen to everyone, and I can improve my clarity without turning this into a judgment of who I am as a person. And a change like this is truly significant. So if you're an ESL speaker listening today, here's something I really want you to hear. When people misunderstand your speech, you're not reacting to one sentence in one moment. A lot of times you're reacting to a whole history. A history of repeating yourself, a history of being careful, a history of trying really hard, and a history of knowing that you're intelligent and capable while worrying that your speech is not fully showing that to other people. That's why these moments can hit so hard. And that's also why working on speech clarity can be so emotional, because it's not just a technical skill. It's tied to identity, confidence, safety, professionalism, and self-expression. So if you've ever thought, why am I so affected by this? The answer might just be, because this isn't only about words, it's about being known accurately. And for those of you whose English is your first language, this still applies. People are misunderstood in presentations, in meetings, in marriages, in friendships, in texts, in emails, in casual conversation where the tone lands wrong and suddenly everybody's annoyed. We've all had moments where we thought, hey, that's not what I meant at all. That's why this topic reaches beyond accent, beyond grammar, and beyond fluency. At the center of it is a very old, very human longing. Please hear me correctly. Please see what I mean. Please don't reduce me to the awkwardness of this one moment, and please understand who I'm trying to be. That longing is universal. So, if being misunderstood is weighing on you lately, here's what I want you to know. Your frustration is understandable. Your desire to be understood is not excessive. And the pain you feel in those moments, that's not random. It comes from something deeply human. The wish to connect, the wish to be recognized, the wish for your inner world to make it safely into someone else's mind. That wish is not a weakness. It's part of what makes communication meaningful in the first place. And yes, you can absolutely work on clarity, and you can improve your pronunciation. You can strengthen your confidence too. You can learn tools that can help your message come across more easily. But while you're doing that, I hope you also remember this, that being misunderstood sometimes is not proof that you're failing. It's proof that you're doing something brave. You're trying to reach out to other people. You're participating, you're speaking, and you're putting yourself out there. And really, that's all that matters. And with that, this is Katherine Arthur, a pronounced speech and accent specialist. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today on Fluent and Fearless. If this episode resonated with you, I hope it reminded you that you're not alone in this experience, whether you're speaking in a second language or simply trying to express yourself clearly in this complicated world of ours. The desire to be understood, well, that's something that we all share. The desire to be understood is not something you need to apologize for. It's one of the most human things about you. And I'd like to help you on your communication journey by showing you how to speak with confidence. I mentioned a free gift earlier in this episode, and I have one for you. Let me tell you about it. If you speak English as a second language, you know you've already accomplished something remarkable. You're working, collaborating, and building relationships in a language that isn't your first. But even highly skilled professionals sometimes feel that their spoken communication doesn't fully reflect their expertise. Maybe people occasionally ask you to repeat yourself, or maybe meetings move quickly and it's hard to jump in. Or maybe you simply want your voice to sound as confident as you truly feel that you are. That's where my free guide can help you. Speak with Confidence is filled with tips to help you sound more natural and professional when speaking American English. Get your copy of this free PDF guide today. All you have to do is go to my website, pronouncespeech.com, pronouncespeech.com. At the top of the page, look for the button that says Get Your Free Speak with Confidence Guide here. Click on the button, fill in your name and your email address, and your free guide will be on its way to you. It's Speak with Confidence, a free guide for ESL professionals. Just go to pronouncespeech.com, click on that blue button on the top of the page, and you'll be on your way to getting that free guide in no time. pronouncespeech.com. And you know, I really love giving people free gifts, and that's why this work I do really matters. I love giving people the gift of clear communication. So, with all that in mind, get your free guide and then get out there and turn that spark into a flame. And be sure to connect with us on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook at Pronounced Speech and Accent Specialist. Again, Katherine Arthur here. Until next time, keep speaking, keep showing up, and keep reminding yourself that your voice deserves to be heard. Thanks again for listening, and I'll talk to you next time on Fluent and Fearless.